Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to The Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and I will be your guide and gracious host along this leg of the way that we will take here today. This is a continuation of the last episode, but then again, each episode has been a continuation of the last one. Today I am struck by, as my family has gone to Australia and I am alone in the house, I am left to my own devices, and that's when I get consumed by all the making of art. I try to schedule my day to do the different things that I have to do, spread out, and I have started to think that I would like to think of my process, what I've talked about a lot as my process of how I create my art, or how I create my shows or whatever. I'd like to think of that more as a practice. It's like a doctor's practice, or a practice is a better way to express it, I think. It's like I'm practicing something. I'm not actually already a master in it. Even the master is still practicing. What is your art practice? Well, I get up in the morning and I do some reading, and I read some tea, and I read some tea leaves. No, I don't. I drink the tea and I read my book and I take notes on whatever creative project that I'm doing. But at the moment, I am sort of at the stage of my practice where I have gone on the main project that I'm working on, which is a family show, The Return of the Magic Circus. I've gone from the stage of practice into a place where I have been working on the moves and the details, which is sort of like learning the thing, and I'm now in a kind of rehearsal stage, and that's a slow and tedious process. I don't actually have to do this show until in August. But I have 2 months of shows where I'm going away, and I don't know if I have room in the car to bring all of the props for a secondary show, and doing 12 shows a week with this other show. So then I'm away for those 2 months, and then I'm going away for a couple of weeks to Rotterdam, and I'm going away to Torino. So all that leaves it with, as a showman, I got to do the show stuff, but also got to do the man, the father, and the husband thing as well, and that takes a lot of time as well. So you need to fit it all in there, and the random gigs in between. So what is my practice for getting all this done? Well, it is getting it done right now. I get up in the morning, drink my tea, read something, and then I do physical practice on those skills that needs to be honed. Today I worked on making some props, and then I have over the last bit of time been recording some episodes to try to get a little bit ahead. And now I'm of course talking to you about the art and practice, and the art practice. But all of this is just, what am I art and what am I practicing? Well, I am practicing my art. And what is this art? Well, it is the art of entertainment. How about that for a transition into what we're going to talk about today? Because this will... we started it last week, and we'll do it now, and we'll talk next episode as well, as I have mentioned last time, but we'll talk about it from the point of view of Goethe, from literature or whatever. So all of these things can then turn into some sort of exercises that you can use whilst creating or whilst working on your material. Anyway, I hope that complete and utter, off the top of my head ramble made any kind of sense, and maybe I will elaborate it on just like an art practice. That's something that I should really talk about in a whole episode, but that will be for another day. Now let's have a very short accordion tune. The art of entertainment. Or let's start more specifically that we're going to talk about how entertainment sort of invites you in and brings you along for the ride, or for a ride. We talked about last time the difference between art and entertainment. We won't go through that because you can just click back and listen to it for free. Now, the immediacy of the entertainment experience means it needs a certain level of accessibility. like for it to be enjoyable and all that. And this process needs to be relatively effortless for the audience. It has to be fun from the start and keep being enjoyable along the way for it to be entertainment, following some of these definitions. And I heard just today on this podcast that talking about Wittgenstein, and he was sort of saying if you want to know what something means or what a word means, he was very interested in words, then you're just going to just see how that word is being used. So it was interesting. I just thought that sort of backed up a little bit this idea that I have that you can get valid information from looking at the dictionaries and the common use of these words. So art does not have the same requirements, that was what we looked at last time, of being effortless to engage with or enjoyable. Art can be difficult to understand. You might need to know a certain philosophical position before being able to enjoy it, and it's still art. The prerequisite philosophical knowledge would be a kind of intellectual hurdle that one had to overcome to appreciate the piece, like appreciate the art piece or whatever. And even if you did have that, then it would still be art. If what you do is difficult to get into and hard to like, if it's outright boring and requires a whole lot from your audience, it's not good entertainment, but it might still be art. And I think we could go so far as to say that great art should be difficult and takes work. Or at least this is some sort of commonly held assumption or unspoken thing. Like if you're reading some great literature or watching some art film, the fact that it is almost incomprehensible is often taken as a sign that, oh, this must be great art. And I'm, of course, exaggerating a very complex issue here, but I hope that you get my sort of general point. Personally, I don't think there is any intrinsic link between something needing to be difficult to engage with and it being of great artistic value. Great art does not have to be difficult or hard to enjoy. As a performer who likes to wrestle with the big concepts in my work, I make sure to keep this in mind. I am an entertainer, so I'm always aware of how much I am asking of my audience. What I do is not school. I can't snap and shout at my audience halfway through my act and tell them to pay attention. This is important stuff I'm talking about. The attention must be freely given. In a school show with a screaming bunch of second-grade kids, I might tell them to sit still and pay attention for what good that'll do, but at least in principle, attention must be freely given for something to be entertaining or even be entertainment. So, as performers, we can always push and play with boundaries. And this is true for art and for entertainment. We spoke about that a little bit last time, that the constantly changing definition of art, with its, whenever somebody breaks through another barrier, then any definition of art needs to now also include that previous thing. But we can also do that with entertainment. What was considered entertaining in the past, like when I read about the descriptions of what Houdini did, where he set up some elaborate escape like the milk can escape or straitjacket escape, and he did those in the beginning. He did it behind the curtains. So he put this stuff on, and then for you not to see how it was actually done, he'd go behind the curtain, thrash about for ages, and then come back out all sweaty and ask a question or whatever, and then go back in again. And people would accept this. That would not fly today. That you would go out, start doing something, and then the performer would go behind the curtain and everyone would say, oh, I wonder what's happening behind the curtain. Anyway, these standards change. I have experimented with boredom and confusion in my performance of very conceptual and philosophical concepts, like deliberately pushing the boundaries of what could be called effortless attention, but I am always aware of what I am doing and always aim to keep the overall audience experience as effortless as possible. I never want to be obscure or difficult unless there is a good and enjoyable reason for it. I generally aim to eschew from obfuscation, although in just that last sentence I might have eschewed from that general aim. Effortless and enjoyable are closely related, but offers a slightly different focus. So, with all this in mind, I'm offering a new kind of point of view on entertainment. That entertainment is anything which allows the audience to effortlessly pay attention. Entertainment is anything which allows the audience to effortlessly pay attention. And this all means that whether something can be defined as entertainment is dependent on the audience's experience of it. This places no restrictions on what you do, only how it is done. Or not how it's done, but how it's perceived. It places no restrictions on what you do, only how it is perceived and experienced by those watching the show, which means it only matters how it's done, how you present these things. In this sense, entertainment is a kind of limitation placed on art, or it's placed, but not specifically on the material or the content of the performance, material structure, character, but the restriction on here is in the nature of the audience response. So in this sense, entertainment is a kind of limitation placed not on the material or content of the performance, but on the nature of the audience's response. Art, on the other hand, is not affected by the response it gets from the audience. The response to art does not stop or does not play. The response to art does not really play any role at all in deciding whether something is art or not. You can hate what you see or experience. You can feel nothing at all, only to remember it later and maybe be struck by the art in a way that makes you think. But in the end, what you feel about it does not change art ontologically. It doesn't change the nature of what art is or the being of art. Art remains art whether you hate it, love it, or you're indifferent to it. That is, I think, this is where it gets a little bit funny, but until the audience has an immediate response of enjoyment and become effortlessly engaged in the art. If a performance art piece catches the audience's attention and they're having too much fun time watching it, the art kind of morphs into entertainment, and this, I believe, is an uneasy territory for art. It shouldn't be, but I think it is. Now, with modern art, and so, some people in the modern art world like Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons, whose art is so engaging and easy to pay attention to, that or even like Banksy, that does the graffiti work. That if this is so easy to pay attention to and the messages are easy or whatever, then some might argue that it crosses some sort of boundary into entertainment or something else, like fun and immediate enjoyment is kind of suspicious in art. It's funny that if someone's art becomes immediately enjoyable and funny, the creator might find herself becoming an entertainer instead of an artist. Let's say you make a whole bunch of hard and difficult to access artworks, and then you come onto a good thing and everybody starts loving it and laughing when they're watching it, and then people go, yep, they've lost their edge, they're sold out. Which in my line of work is a good thing. If you sell out your show, that's a great thing. Then you have some more money to take home and put in your ceramic pig or wherever you keep your money. Anyway, Jeff Koons, he's famous for creating these massive, beautifully chromed and colored facsimiles of balloon animals. He's made in metal and it's very elaborate. And his balloon dogs are meticulously reproduced balloon creatures. And the first time I saw one of these, I was intrigued and impressed. I saw it in Bilbao in Spain. All the details of the way that the balloon twists and distorts when you twist two bubbles of balloons into a pair of ears or legs, they were all there. The ears and legs are, incidentally, just for those of you who aren't skilled in the art of balloonology, that they're made with the same kind of twist. Anyway, I find it interesting that Jeff Koons chose a balloon animal for these grand sculptures. He obviously got the fact that these odd latex creatures has a real entertaining, maybe he didn't care about the entertainment, but he has a real appeal on humans. I know that. because I spent substantial parts of my youth making balloon animals to kids my own age at shopping centres with my dad. Now Koons captured this odd fascination and bottled it for the art world with his majestic recreations. And as he did so, did he cross a boundary so that his creations ceased to be art and instead became entertainment? I don't know, I don't think so. Audiences can enjoy art, that's what I think, and they can also be entertained by it. I would argue that if art remains art, regardless of what the audience feels about it, it must also mean that if the audience effortlessly enjoys it, it remains art. Whether something is entertainment or not bears no real reference to the potential depth of the content expressed with it. It might be true that if you make entertainment for the sole purpose of being entertaining, you often end up with a lot of color and movement and no or not much artistic content. If there are no complex emotions expressed, no ideas presented, and after watching it you're left with no inspiration that makes the audience want to do anything or like going out in the world and be better people or whatever, then this is kind of pointless entertainment. If there is no serious content, thought or ideas in the entertainment, you could always argue that it is shallow. It's a little bit like we talk about escapism or so, but I don't know, I think it's like the difference between sort of escaping away from your responsibilities, but there's also the other kind of escape, is the escape from imprisonment. So it's both of those might play a role, and I think there's definitely a room for people to be to have just have a good time. That's really good in itself. But of course, when looked at it then objectively from the outside, you might say this is empty calories. This is junk food for the mind. But anyway, what we might have discovered here is that as long as you do give your entertainment some serious thought, there is no reason why it would become incompatible with art. It is absolutely possible to make art entertaining and also to make entertaining art. And here comes a quote from an illuminated showman. I believe entertainment can aspire to be art and can become art. But if you set out to make art, you're an idiot. That was Steve Martin that said that. I think he said it in his autobiography, Born Standing Up. So, judging by Steve Martin, a master of the craft of funny, the intent that goes into the creation is important. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about my process, or perhaps, as I already mentioned earlier on today, this was not completely, what do you call it? It's not completely random that I started going on about that, because I have something to say about my process, but I'm thinking of it as a practice instead, as of today. No. In my work, I just go ahead and do my thing when I'm creating something. I make my act and my shows, mixing and matching whatever takes my fancy and whatever ideas that I'm currently consumed enough about to think valuable to share. And one of the limitations in my process or practice and form is that I want the audience to enjoy my art. I keep this in my mind. An important aspect of that experience comes from being able to effortlessly pay attention to what it is that I am presenting. So I need to invite them in, drag them in, and I want them to have fun. And I also want to present important or serious issues. So those two things might be what people often think of as a discordant or not overlapping. But I want to express and explore grand human concerns, ideas and phenomena, but I want it to be presented in an engaging and entertaining form. To do this, I keep my audience in mind every step of the way. I don't want them to only have fun by laughing at light-hearted jokes. That's a good starting point. But if they, along the way, find themselves moved emotionally, close to tears from a beautiful act with lovely music and a truthful story topped with some unexpected physical skill, they rarely sit in the audience thinking like, oh, it was fun, but I wish the show wouldn't move me emotionally, or I wish the show didn't make me think. People are smart, and they might not normally seek some of these things out, but I think they love them when they encounter them. People are smart. That's the Teller quote there. Make your acts assuming that people are smart. That's a good starting point. Not every act that I perform has to have maximum intellectual content or emotional impact or urge a change of heart or mind or instigate a desire for action from the audience. But, it'd be nice if it did. And it was also very funny on top of it. One might as well aim high. But as we've seen from this monologue, it can be seen that entertainment can be seen as a kind of limitation. But setting a boundary also creates room for practically infinite play. Take a game like basketball, it's got strict rules. You could say that the rules were limitations, but if the game didn't have the rules, the players would not have the unbound freedom that you might imagine. They would not be players at all. It wouldn't be basketball if it wasn't for that. It is the rules which makes the game possible. The rules create a boundary which clearly defines what's part of the game and what's not. Within those boundaries lies an enormous possibility for combination and recombination and play. No basketball game is ever exactly the same, but the rules are known, and arguably it is because the players and the spectators all understand these rules that the game becomes enjoyable to play and to watch. From the limitations of the rules, everybody involved, be it the players or the spectators, can easily now spot the creativity and mastery of the players, because you know the rules and you see that, oh my lord, look at that fancy footwork of that guy. Now, the limitation of entertainment does not in any way necessitate it being shallow. It's like with the rules of basketball, but significantly more open. If all that's asked of you as an entertainer is to give the audience an enjoyable experience, then the possibilities are practically endless. An audience knows the rule that you are supposed to entertain them, that they have to enjoy themselves, and that you're not supposed to bore them. That is the kind of contract implicitly signed with the purchase of the ticket. They come expecting a good time, but a good time can be so many things. If you start talking of trigonometry, they'll probably laugh, because in an entertainment situation that is a highly unusual topic, and it would be funny because it would be surprising. If you continue to talk about it, they would be further surprised. And if they, against all their expectations, find themselves enjoying your trigonomic rant, if they laugh and have fun, you have surprised them even more. And the novelty of that situation might itself be enjoyable. Anyway, even if that might be a little bit far-fetched. Just look at my Geometry of Showmanship episode. Not my most popular one. But the age of entertainment, this is like the cautionary thing of whatever. Because as an entertainer, I am fully aware that we live in an age of entertainment, that this is not just a good thing. We live in an attention economy where what is bought and sold by social media platforms is our attention. Perhaps our time is not so different from all others, or other times, as we shall see when we take a look at Goethe's Faust next episode. But the argument could be made that every single time has been a kind of age of entertainment. But that said, this age, our age, entertainment is king, and it has in many ways become the one common denominator which everything is judged by. With social media, television, the internet, sport, and even schooling is colored by entertainment. We live in an attention economy, people say. And what keeps our attention is entertainment. Effortlessly keeps our attention, The things which captures and gets our attention are the ones getting rich. Social media, sports, movies, television are probably the most popular forms of entertainment. Our performing arts are also most certainly entertaining. We're all artists, but our art must be entertaining or seek support beyond the paying crowds. like from the government or whatever. If you're not entertainment or entertaining enough so that you sell tickets, then you got to seek financial support somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with entertainment per se, but something is skewed in society when every experience is judged by its entertainment value, like the news or whatever. Much like any kind of standard testing, like any standard requirement, like in schools or in any other place, if everything is judged by the same standard, almost everything will underperform. Take the image of a penguin and a monkey and a horse, all having to pass the same test to be accepted into a school of magic. Now imagine the principal, the headmaster wizard, dressed in his grey pointy hat with his silver beard tucked in under his belt, and he says, "There is only one test that stands between you getting accepted or sent back home, and that is to climb that tree." To be amused and entertained was at some point reserved for special moments of the day, or the week, or the year. The idea of leisure time didn't really appear until the work days got shortened to 8 hours rather than 12. Women were well on their way into workforces in factories, and they were making their own money. So by the time leisure time became something everybody sought and even expected, there were more people with money to spend. Leisure time was time not set off to matters strictly necessary, like sleeping or working to feed yourself and your family or whatever. It was a precious few hours set off to recreation, to rejuvenate yourself in body, soul, and spirit. It was time for recreation, to recreate yourself by taking a breath and to find strength to meet the challenges and humdrum natural tediousness of everyday life. Now this recreational time was intended to refill the human reservoirs, which were drained by working in factories or any menial job, and to maximize the experiences in that short time available. Nothing gives emotional rejuvenation like good entertainment. Like a good story told well, it just pulls you in, and time disappears, and you come out with questions and answers all jumbled about in your head. And it's like memory research shows that a good story goes straight into long-term memory. Like it doesn't go into sort of mid-term memory, whatever. Like when where your things you study for school goes in, and you just remember it for a short bit of time, or like it. Anyway. Good stories, good entertainment. Anyway, if even the most mindless drivel is made entertaining by misusing the tools of the showman's craft, then the ability for people to partake in recreation in any meaningful way disappears, leaving us all feeling tired and apathetic. And to invoke Marx, like religion, entertainment can also be opium for the masses, something that keeps you wanting more even if it is deadening you to any proactive participation in the world. The gutter and the stars. I can see where this is going. In the public imagination, I think entertainment is thought of as something less than art. We talked about this, and I take this as the challenge. Entertainment has huge potential for transcendent experiences, and the way entertainment is perceived in the popular imagination, it lowers their expectations. And when you step inside the blue and white striped big top, your expectations for intellectual elevation and emotional enrichment are generally very low, which means the potential for uplift and enrichment is huge. We can use the low expectation to our benefit. When the audience expects something lowbrow and then receives highbrow, I believe we are in a peculiarly imaginative domain. It's my performance sweet spot, the contradiction of the low and the high. I think this is fertile soil for growing art. I love this clash of highbrow and lowbrow, the silly and the sublime, the profound and the profane. I find the idea that the clown and the drunken poet sits in their respective dwellings, one in a leaking caravan and the other in a decrepit flophouse, both listening to Bach and Beethoven whilst creating their low-life art. As I write this, there is a particular poet that I have in mind, and that is Charles Bukowski, the American poet and author. And he famously listened to classical music in his cheap rented room whilst getting drunk and writing poetry. And he had a unique voice and an ability to conjure beauty and truth from the world around him. And his world was one of prostitutes and bar fights, alcohol, awful and meaningless jobs, and poverty. And when you read his work, your guard sort of goes down. He writes his poems like stories that you're told while sitting in a cheap dive bar. You follow him along, and the material and the way it's told, it leaves you kind of unprepared for the poetic punches that he delivers. One minute you're reading about a drunk worried about his book sales in Europe and his image as a tough guy, and only to reveal that there is a bluebird in his heart which he hides from the world. But sometimes at night, when no one knows and no one is watching, then he lets it out to sing a little. Not loud, so that others can hear it, and he takes some notes about it, what he sings perhaps on his typewriter, but most of the time he inhales cigarette smoke onto the bluebird and pours whiskey on it. But at those special nights when he lets the bird out, and he knows when he lets it out that it is the only thing about himself that he truly loves, then he says, "It is beautiful, beautiful enough to make a man weep. But I don't weep. Do you?" So what Bukowski does for poetry, Chaplin kind of did for the clown. He's funny tramp who made everyone laugh at his own expense in so many films, then suddenly delivers this emotional anti-war, anti-fascist final speech in his masterpiece, The Dictator. This is the emotional potential of the clown with the sensibility of the poet. Highbrow growing from the lowbrow, the art of entertainment. Truth can be expressed through any medium, and I personally love it when I find my truths and my beauty in the places where I'm not expecting to find it. If I buy a ticket to the ballet and it turns out it's beautiful, both in the way it looks and the way that the orchestra sounds, and in the ideas handled in the narrative, I'm not surprised. I know what to expect. When I'm looking into the gutter and all of a sudden see a whole universe of stars, when I see kaleidoscopic beauty in the dirty and broken, and when the things which people shun, the ideas and the instruments which does not have the reputation of, say, a flute or a harp, when the woman with a dirty coat picks up an accordion and then opens her mouth, and the words and melody, the voice, all comes together to a truth more eloquent and raw than anything orchestra playing Mozart could have presented in a gilded concert hall, that's when I feel lucky. I feel I have found the source to life itself. I hear it in the recordings of Edith Piaf. I hear it in the music of Tom Waits, in the poetry of Charles Bukowski. I read it in the comics of Karl Barks and Don Rosa, in the work of Alan Moore, in the underground cinema of Alejandro Jodorowsky and Jan Svankmajer. Truth, so beautiful its scream of life, is so vibrant and alive it blows away the ugly wrapping. I am an entertainer, and I am not ashamed to say it. I am a proud practitioner of the art of entertainment. It's a noble craft. To paraphrase Oscar Wilde, I might be lying in the gutter, fallen down with confetti in my hair, sawdust and gravel smeared on my thrift store pinstriped suit, but I am looking at the stars behind the strings of multicolored carnival lights swaying in the wind. I'm listening to the creaking of the Ferris wheel and the rickety rhythms of the old steam carousel, which gives tempo for me, whistling a little fugue in G minor by Johann Sebastian Bach whilst thinking about my next pratfall. So to finish our exploration of art and entertainment, we'll then dive in next episode into the masterpiece of literature by Johann Wolfgang Goethe, Faust, and we're going to see if we can find some truths and even a whole method for creating work through the art of entertainment. And thus concludes another exciting episode of The Way of the Showman. It's been a pleasure having you along for the walk along these inner geographies and how the connections to the outer world. It's been great to extend my practice with you. If you enjoy the podcast, it'd be great if you left a review or just tell somebody, tell somebody that I exist. Tell somebody that theWay is a thing to get into. So my friend Daniel Gorski, he said that he was looking for some podcasts, and he said he is already a listener to the way of the showman, but that my voice somehow lulls him into his own imagination, and that could be dangerous whilst going on a long road trip. Then again, I know that Tom Flanagan has had some long stints of listening to many episodes in a row, and Hamish McCormick too has had that same thing. So each to their own, but as I'm working on a project together with Jay Gilligan, we're going to start recording some episodes together, and it was commented that my way of speaking is quite different in that sort of 2-hour podcast that we did together. And I think that's, of course, it's like here I'm sitting in the dark talking to you, just you and me, yeah. But when he's there, I get a whole lot more enthusiastic. So maybe my voice and enthusiasm will change once we get that recorded, and we'll make a little mini season out of that. But yeah, if you are enjoying what I have to say and you think I could contribute something valuable to your work, don't hesitate to take contact, even just for a chat, even just for a little back and forth on Messenger to see if there is any sparks flying. Anyway, you can buy me a coffee at buy me and virtual coffee, or at least give me the means to buy myself a coffee in real life here in town at buymeacoffee/Captain Frodo, buymeacoffee.com/Captain Frodo. And you can find me on social media, Frodo Santini on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find me on Facebook as Captain Frodo as well. So, much love. It's been a pleasure cruising along here with you, and until next time, take care of yourself and those you love, and I really hope to see you at some point along the way.